watched my own reflection blink while my eyes were still open. I want to start there, because everything before it is going to sound like ordinary insomnia, and I need you to know it wasn't ordinary by the time it ended. My name doesn't matter. What matters is that 9 days ago, I stopped being able to sleep, and I still haven't slept since, and I'm not entirely sure anymore that not sleeping is the actual problem. It started the way insomnia always starts. Boring, explainable, the kind of thing you blame on stress or too much coffee or a work deadline that had me up until 2 a.m. 3 nights in a row. Day 1, I just felt tired, the ordinary bone-deep tired of a bad night's sleep. Day 2, my hands had a faint tremor by the afternoon, my mouth stayed dry no matter how much water I drank, and I snapped at a coworker over something so small, I don't even remember what it was. Day 3, I gave up trying to force sleep and just accepted I'd ride it out. The way you do when you assume your body will eventually collapse into rest on its own. It didn't. By day 4, I'd started doing the things people do when insomnia stops being funny. Melatonin, a white noise machine, no screens an hour before bed, all the advice that works for everyone except, apparently, me. I lay in bed for 6 hours doing nothing but staring at the ceiling fan, feeling every individual minute of it, and got up the next morning having slept exactly 0 of them. If you've ever gone more than 2 or 3 nights without real sleep, you already know the particular kind of unraveling that starts to happen behind your eyes. The way the world gets a half-second delay, like you're watching your own life through old television static. I want you to hold on to that feeling, because it's about to get worse. Day 5 is when I first noticed it, standing at the bathroom sink brushing my teeth at 11 p.m., too exhausted to feel anything but numb. My reflection was half a second behind me. I don't mean that dramatically. I mean I lifted my toothbrush, and in the mirror, for just a fraction of a second longer than it should have taken, my reflection's arm was still down at its side. It caught up almost instantly, close enough that if I hadn't been staring directly at it, exhausted and hyper-aware the way you get on day 5 of no sleep, I'd have written it off completely as my own eyes lagging, not the glass. I told myself that's exactly what it was. Sleep deprivation messes with visual processing. I'd read that somewhere, some article about the effects of extended wakefulness, and it made enough sense that I almost let it go. I did the test anyway. I raised my hand fast, twice, watching closely. Both times, the reflection was slow by what I'd estimate was half a second. Not my eyes lagging behind reality, the mirror lagging behind me. I didn't sleep that night either. I don't think I expected to. By day 7, the exhaustion had turned into something else, a kind of hollowed-out clarity, where I was too tired to be scared of things I probably should have been terrified of. That's the only explanation I have for why I stood in front of that bathroom mirror at 3 a.m. on day 7, deliberately, and just watched myself for almost 10 minutes straight. My eyes were open. I know they were open. My eyes were dry and burning from 9 days without proper rest. And I remember consciously fighting the urge to blink because some part of me, underneath the exhaustion, already suspected what I was about to see. The reflection blinked. Once, slow, deliberate, while my own eyes stayed open and locked on it. I backed out of that bathroom so fast I hit my shoulder on the doorframe hard enough to bruise. I sat on my bed in the dark for what felt like an hour, telling myself every rational thing I could think of: hallucination, sleep deprivation psychosis, the brain doing exactly what brains do when they're starved of REM cycles for a week straight. All of that is probably true. I want it to be true. But knowing something might be a hallucination doesn't make it feel less real when you're the one standing there watching it happen. The next morning, day 8, I covered every mirror in my house. Bathroom, hallway, the full-length one in my bedroom closet, sheets, towels, whatever I had, tucked and taped at the edges so there wasn't a gap of glass showing anywhere. If that sounds like an overreaction to you, I'd ask you to imagine watching your own reflection do something your body never told it to do, and then tell me you wouldn't have done the exact same thing. That night, somewhere around 2 a.m., I heard tapping. Not loud. 3 soft, evenly spaced knocks, coming from behind the sheet I draped over the bathroom mirror. I lay completely still in bed, listening, telling myself it was the pipes, the house settling. Anything at all that wasn't what it obviously sounded like. Someone, or something, testing whether the covering was still in place, patient and unhurried, like it had all the time in the world to wait for me to take it back down. I didn't go check. I've never been more proud of a decision in my life than I am of staying in that bed until sunrise, even though I know now that decision didn't actually stop anything. Day 9, today, or what I think is today, because I've genuinely lost track of how many times the sun has come up since this started. I woke up standing in front of the bathroom mirror. I don't remember getting out of bed. I don't remember walking down the hallway. I don't remember pulling the sheet down off the glass, but it was down, pooled on the floor at my feet, and I was standing there in the exact position you'd stand to look yourself directly in the eye, with absolutely no memory of the several hours it must have taken between falling into bed and ending up there. My reflection was already looking back at me, not lagging this time. Already there, already waiting, like it had been standing in that position long before I arrived to fill the other half of the glass. It mouthed something at me. No sound. I want to be precise, because precision is the only thing keeping me from completely losing the thread of what's real right now. Just the shape of words, slow and deliberate, like it wanted to make absolutely sure I could read its lips even though I couldn't hear a single syllable. I don't know what it said. I've replayed the shape of those words in my head 100 times since, and I can't make my own memory hold on to them. Like whatever I saw is actively resistant to being remembered clearly. That's when I woke up screaming, in my own bed, sheets soaked through, with absolutely no way of knowing whether that had just happened, or whether it happened 3 nights ago, and I've been reliving it every time I close my eyes since, unable to tell my own memories apart from whatever is happening to me in real time. I haven't slept in 9 days. I know that much is true because I've watched every clock in my house tick forward those 9 days in real time, awake for all of them, exhausted past the point where exhaustion even feels like a describable sensation anymore. What I don't know, what I genuinely cannot answer anymore, no matter how many times I ask myself, is which version of me actually did the sleeping somewhere in all of this. Because something in that mirror has been resting. Something in there blinked when I didn't, moved when I hadn't yet, mouthed words at me with the calm, unhurried patience of something that's had 9 full nights of sleep while I've had none. I don't know which one of us went to sleep first. I just know only one of us woke up, and I've stopped being entirely sure it was me. If anyone else has gone this long without sleep and started noticing things like this, a lag, a blink, anything at all in your own reflection that didn't match what you were actually doing, I need to hear it happen to someone else too. Because right now, I'm sitting with my back to every mirror in this house, and I don't know how much longer I can keep myself from turning around to check. My porch camera has died at exactly 3:14 a.m. for the last 11 nights in a row, and I've replaced it 4 times. I run trail cameras. It's a hobby, not a job. I work at a co-op supply store outside a small farming town in the Midwest, population under 2,000, and on weekends I hike the Treeline behind my property, setting up cameras to catch deer, coyotes, the occasional bobcat, if I'm lucky. I've been doing it for 6 years. I have a shoebox full of memory cards with nothing on them, but dozen fawns, and one embarrassing video of my own dog getting spooked by a raccoon. This isn't a story about me being new to this. That matters, because it means I know what a deer is supposed to look like on an infrared sensor, and I know what one isn't. It started in March, the way I imagine most of these stories start, with something so small you'd feel stupid mentioning it to anyone. A camera 3/4 of a mile back from my house, angled at a game trail I'd used for years, caught a shape at the very edge of the frame. Tall, thin in a way that didn't sit right, the proportions wrong for anything I could name. Out of focus, mostly, because it was right at the edge of the sensor's range. I told myself it was a busted branch or a deer standing at an angle the camera didn't like. I moved the camera 2 feet to the left the next weekend, told myself that would fix it. It didn't fix it. It just meant the shape showed up 2 feet further into frame the next time. I want to be specific about what I mean when I say the proportions were wrong, because cryptid gets thrown around a lot online right now, and I don't want you picturing some movie monster. It looked, from what I could make out, roughly like something standing upright, the way a person stands, but stretched, the legs too long for the torso, joints in places that made me think of a marionette a kid had strung together wrong. Every photo I got over the next month had the same problem. It was always at the exact edge of the frame, always slightly blurred, like it knew precisely how far the lens could see and refused to step 1 inch past that boundary. If you've ever looked at a photo you took yourself and felt certain, deep in your gut, that whatever's in it was standing there specifically because it knew you'd be looking later. You already understand the feeling I'm describing, and I promise you, it doesn't get easier to sit with. By April, things stopped being about photographs. My neighbor, Russ, lost 2 goats over consecutive weekends. No blood at the pen, no torn fencing, no broken latch, nothing a coyote or a bobcat would leave behind. The animals were just gone, like someone had lifted them out clean. He filed it as predator loss with his insurance and didn't think much more of it, at least not out loud. What he did mention, almost as an afterthought over the fence one evening, was a hum. Low, he said, the kind you don't hear so much as feel. In your back teeth, in the base of your skull, worst right around midnight, gone by sunrise like it was never there. I laughed it off when he told me. I stopped laughing about 2 weeks later when I started feeling it myself. I want to tell you about the night the camera finally got a clear shot, because it's the part of this I've replayed more than anything else. I'd set up a new camera closer to the house that week, mounted on the corner post of my porch, motion triggered, angled out toward the Treeline instead of into it. I figured if whatever was out there kept its distance from my other cameras, maybe I'd catch something approaching from a different vantage instead. 3 nights later, at 2:58 a.m., the camera triggered 11 times in a row, each frame a second apart. The first 10 photos are unremarkable: dark yard, faint moonlight, the shape of my own fence line. In the 11th, something is standing at the very edge of my lawn, facing the camera directly for the first time in 6 weeks of this happening. It has no face. I don't mean that as an exaggeration. Where a face should be, there's a texture like static on an old television. A smear the infrared sensor clearly picked up, but couldn't resolve into anything coherent. Like the camera itself didn't know what it was looking at any more than I did. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my kitchen table with every light in the house on, and around 3:14 a.m., the porch camera's battery died. I charged it fully that afternoon. I checked the logs the next morning. Full charge, sudden drop to 0, no gradual drain, just gone. The way a battery behaves when something pulls the power out of it all at once rather than uses it up. That's when I set up the audio recorder. The recording runs about 40 minutes, and for the first 38 of them, it's exactly what you'd expect from a rural night. Crickets whine through the Treeline, my dog shifting in his sleep on the porch. Then, around the 3:11 mark, everything stops. Not fades. Stops, all at once, like someone hit mute on the entire outdoors. No crickets, no wind, no dog. 3 seconds of total, suffocating silence. And then one long, low sound, metallic and drawn out. The kind of groan you'd expect from a ship's hull settling under pressure, not from anything with lungs or a throat. It lasts almost 4 full seconds. Then the crickets start again like nothing happened, and the recording continues, ordinary, for another 20 minutes. And if that sound is the kind of thing that would make the hair on your arm stand up just from me describing it, you should know it isn't the worst part of this story, and I wish it were. I called Russ the next morning. He didn't sound surprised. He told me, quieter than I'd ever heard him, that he'd stopped keeping goats altogether, and that he was thinking about selling the back 40 acres of his property to the county at a loss, just to stop being the one responsible for whatever was happening on it. 2 nights ago, I found a footprint in my own backyard. Not near the Treeline, not near the fence. In the grass 8 feet from my back door, mid-stride, like whatever left it had been walking directly toward my house and simply stopped existing partway through the step. I measured it. I'm not going to tell you the exact number because I don't want to give this thing a scale that sounds made up, but I will tell you that based on stride length alone, the distance between that print and the partial one behind it, whatever left it would have to stand somewhere around 11 feet tall. I've spent 6 years photographing wildlife in this county. I know what a bear print looks like. I know what an elk track looks like when the mud's soft enough to hold detail. This wasn't either of those, and it wasn't anything else I have a name for. I brought the camera in the house that night, charged the battery to full myself, watched the little indicator light turn solid green, plugged it in on my kitchen counter where nothing outside could possibly reach it. At 3:14 a.m., it died anyway. I haven't figured out why yet, and every night I don't figure it out, the print in my backyard gets a little closer to the porch, like it's remeasuring the distance between us in installments, one visit at a time, and I don't know what happens on the night the distance finally reaches 0. Has anyone else's trail cameras ever died at the exact same time, night after night, no matter how you charge them? I need to know if there's a rational explanation for that specific detail, because right now, at 3:11 p.m. in broad daylight while I'm writing this, I still can't come up with one. The carpet was wet again, and I hadn't run water in that house for 11 hours. I want to get that out of the way first, because everything else I'm about to tell you is going to sound like it can be explained. It can't. I've tried. My brother-in-law is a plumber, and he's tried. The guy from Terminix tried, twice, and left without charging me the second time, which should tell you something about how that visit went. My name doesn't matter for this. What matters is the house, a 3-bedroom on Birch Hollow Lane, built in 1974, the kind of place realtors call full of character when they mean the previous owner did some things to it you're not going to like. I bought it in October, 8 months before any of this started, because it was cheap and because I was 34 and tired of paying someone else's mortgage. My inspector, a guy named Denny who'd been doing this since before I was born, flagged some minor moisture in the basement and told me to keep an eye on the sump pump. That was it. One line, on one page, in a 30-page report. I didn't think about it again until March. The smell came before anything else did. Low tide. That specific, unmistakable brine and rot smell you get walking past a harbor at the wrong hour. Except my house is 400 miles from the nearest coastline, tucked into a landlocked county where the closest thing to an ocean is a reservoir built in the 60s. At first I blamed the sump pump, like Denny told me to. I went down there with a flashlight, found nothing but the usual concrete and dust basement smell, a little dampness near the water heater, nothing alarming. I bought a dehumidifier. It helped for about 2 weeks. Then the humming started. It was faint, the kind of sound you convince yourself is a neighbor's HVAC unit, or a transformer down the street, or your own blood in your ears if you lie still enough. It came at night, always after 11, always from below me. Not mechanical, not rhythmic enough to be a pump or a fridge compressor. It rose and fell in a way that made me think, stupidly, of breathing. I told myself it was the pipes. Old houses talk. That's what everyone says. I want you to remember that I tried to be reasonable about this. I did the boring, adult things first. I called a plumber. I called an HVAC guy. Neither of them heard the hum when they were there, which, fine, I get it. Hums are hard to diagnose on demand. But both of them mentioned, unprompted, that the basement felt off. One of them, a 19-year-old apprentice who clearly hadn't learned yet to keep his mouth shut around customers, said it felt like standing next to an aquarium tank with the lights off. If you've ever stood somewhere and felt like something large was just on the other side of a wall, breathing slow and patient, You already know the feeling I'm describing, and I'm sorry, because it doesn't get better from here. The door wasn't there in October. I know that because Denny's inspection photos, 30 of them, basement included, show a flat, unbroken stretch of drywall behind the water heater. I've looked at those photos more times than I'd like to admit. In April, there was a door. Plain, wood, painted the same off-white as the rest of the basement wall, like whoever built it wanted it to disappear. No hinges I could see. No handle. No knob. Just a shallow seam and a hairline gap at the bottom. The kind you'd walk past 100 times without noticing unless you were looking for it, which by then, I was. It was cold to the touch. Not basement cold. Refrigerator cold. The kind that makes your fingertips ache after a few seconds. And through the gap at the bottom, I could hear. I want to be precise here, because precision is the only thing keeping me sane. A slow, irregular dripping, like water falling from a height onto more water. I did the thing you're not supposed to do in these stories. I knelt down. I pressed my ear against the wood. Under the dripping, faint and layered, like a recording of the ocean played through a wall 3 rooms away, I heard waves. Not the ocean sound machine kind. Real waves. The specific texture of water pulling back over rock. The kind you only really know if you've stood on a shoreline at low tide and listened to it drag the gravel with it. I stayed there long enough that I stopped being scared and started being curious, which is its own kind of stupid, and that's when something on the other side of the door knocked back. One knock. Not loud. Deliberate, like it had heard me listening and wanted me to know it knew. I didn't sleep in that house for 3 days. Here's the part where I almost convinced myself it was nothing. My sister came to stay that weekend. She's the practical one. Works in property management, has heard every possible excuse a tenant has ever given for a leak. She went down with me, knocked on the door herself, laughed at me a little. "It's a water main," she said. "Sean, it's a water main behind drywall. That's it. That's the whole mystery." She pressed her hand flat against the wood and held it there for a long 10 seconds, and I watched her face change from amused to something quieter. She didn't say anything else about it that night. She left a day early. When I asked her why, she said work called her back. I don't think that was true, but I didn't push it because by then I had bigger problems. The following morning, the basement carpet, cheap, gray, laid down sometime in the Reagan administration, was soaked through 6 feet out from the door in every direction, in a rough half circle. I hadn't run water. The dehumidifier tank was still half full from the day before, untouched. I got down on my hands and knees and smelled the carpet, and it was unmistakable. Salt water. Low tide. The same smell that started this whole thing back in March. If that sent a chill down your spine, you already understand why I couldn't just sell the house and walk away. Because at that point, I genuinely believed if I left, it would follow. I called Denny, not to inspect anything, just to ask, off the record, if he remembered anything strange about the basement back in October. He went quiet for a second too long before answering. Told me the previous owners had moved out fast, faster than the paperwork usually allows, and that the listing agent had specifically asked him to keep his report brief. He said it like it embarrassed him to admit it. Then he told me, almost as an afterthought, that the county has no record of a permit for any water heater work being done in that house, ever, which means whoever built that wall, and whatever's behind it, was never supposed to be there in the first place. I want to tell you, I found something conclusive behind that door. I didn't. I wish I could give you a monster, a name, a reason. What I can give you is this. 2 weeks ago, at 2:51 in the morning, I remember the exact time because I was staring at my phone, too afraid to move. I went down there one last time with a crowbar and about 4 beers worth of bad judgment, and I opened it. There was nothing behind it. Just the original wall, the one from Denny's photos, flat gray concrete, bone dry. For about 4 seconds. Then my flashlight beam caught something on the surface of the concrete. A sheen, a ripple, the specific way light bends across moving water, and it was gone before I could be sure I'd seen it at all. The dripping stopped. The hum stopped. For one night, the house was completely, perfectly silent, and somehow that was worse than any of it. I put the door back. I pushed the water heater in front of it, then a shelving unit, then everything else I could drag down those stairs. It's sealed now, as sealed as a door with no hinges can be. The hum came back 3 nights later. It's louder now than it's ever been, and for the first time, I can feel it. A low pressure behind my sternum when I stand at the top of the basement stairs, like standing too close to a speaker at a concert. I keep asking myself the same question every night before I fall asleep, and I don't have an answer. If something's been leaking into my basement for 8 months, what happens on the night it finally stops leaking and starts arriving instead? I haven't been down there in 4 days. The smell is starting to come up through the floor vents now, and I don't know how much longer I can pretend that's normal, or how much longer I have before I have to go back down and check. If anyone's ever dealt with something like this, a smell, a sound, a door that shouldn't exist in your own house, I'd genuinely like to know I'm not the only one. Because right now, at 2 a.m., listening to that hum get louder through my bedroom floor, it's starting to feel like I am. There are 11 case files on my desk right now, and I am only supposed to be logging them. That's my job. I'm a data analyst, GS9, contractor for a regional public health office I'm not going to name, in a state I'm not going to name, because I signed paperwork about that, and because, frankly, I don't think it matters anymore who finds out. My job for the last 14 months has been boring on purpose. I take incident reports from field agents. I redact identifying information. I file them into a database nobody reads. Insomnia clusters. Anxiety clusters. The kind of small-town public health blip that happens every few years when a water source gets contaminated or a factory closes and everyone's cortisol goes through the floor at once. Case file 44B came in on a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays are when I usually leave early. I didn't leave early that day. I haven't left early since. The first entries are almost aggressively normal. That's the part that gets me now, looking back. How boring it all sounds, how clinical. Subject reports difficulty sleeping, onset 3 weeks prior, no identifiable trigger. Subject reports feeling like someone finishes my sentences before I say them. Subject's spouse reports subject has begun repeating phrases said by strangers, a barista's order confirmation, a stranger's cough, verbatim, hours later, with no apparent awareness they're doing it. I logged 22 of those in the first 3 days. Small town, population maybe 4,000, the kind of place where the field agents note the school district and the water treatment plant in every report out of habit. Nothing dramatic. No hospitalizations. Just insomnia. Echoing. A community slowly forgetting how to generate its own words. By day 5, the case count had tripled. If you're the kind of person who reads a case file and thinks there's always a rational explanation, I want you to hold on to that, because I did too. I held on to it for a lot longer than I should have. The field agent assigned to 44B was a woman I'll refer to by her badge number, 6614, because that's how her voice memos are labeled in our system, and because I don't think I'm supposed to say her name out loud anymore. She was thorough. Her early memos are exactly what you'd expect from someone who's done 100 of these. Flat effect, professional cadence, timestamps, subject numbers. Then day 7 happened. I need you to understand what a voice memo transcription looks like in our system, because it matters for what I'm about to tell you. Every memo gets auto-transcribed, timestamped down to the millisecond, and cross-referenced against the agent's badge audio profile, a kind of vocal fingerprint, so the system can flag if 2 different people are speaking on the same channel. 6614's last memo is 14 seconds long. For the first 9 seconds, it's her voice, clear, describing a subject's home. The smell of the house, she says, is wrong, though she doesn't specify how. She's mid-sentence, saying, the subject's youngest child hasn't spoken in 6 days, but she keeps writing the same. And then the sentence finishes. Same sentence, same breath, no gap in the audio, in a different voice. The system flagged it automatically because the vocal fingerprint didn't match 6614's profile. It didn't match anyone's profile in our database. The finishing voice says 4 words, name over and over. and then the recording ends. 6614 was reported missing by her supervisor 2 days later. Her car was found still running outside the subject's house, driver's door open, engine warm enough that the responding officer estimated it had been idling less than 20 minutes before he arrived. Except the 911 call that sent him there had come in 6 hours earlier. I want to tell you I flagged this to my supervisor immediately. I didn't. I told myself it was a transcription error. Faulty hardware. A prank by someone in the field office with too much time on their hands. I've worked in data long enough to know that clean, boring explanations are almost always the correct ones. I believe that until I open the photo attachment in file 44B19. It's a family portrait. Standard stuff. 5 people, a beige studio backdrop, the kind of photo you'd get done at a mall kiosk. Mother, father, 3 kids, everyone smiling the slightly strained smile people do for professional photos. Everyone except the youngest daughter. Her mouth is open, not smiling open. Open like she's mid-word, caught between syllables, the exact shape your mouth makes forming the beginning of a name. The case notes attached to the photo say the family reported it always looks like that, in every picture, going back to when she was a baby, and that the mother became distressed when the agent asked about it, saying only that her daughter starts things but doesn't finish them anymore. And if that image is sitting with you right now, a child's mouth open in every photograph she's ever been in, always starting a word she never gets to finish, then you already understand why I couldn't sleep that night either. I went back through the case files after that. All of them. I stopped seeing them as data points and started seeing the pattern underneath. Every subject who stopped sleeping also stopped, at some point in the report, being described as speaking in complete sentences of their own. They finished other people's sentences. They repeated overheard phrases. Somewhere in the case files, Agent 6614 wrote a line I haven't been able to get out of my head. It isn't that they can't sleep. It's that something else is using the hours they'd normally spend dreaming. I don't know what she meant by that. I don't think I want to. The case cluster was officially closed 19 days after it opened. Reclassified as a stress-related psychogenic event, mass hysteria, the kind of clean bureaucratic language that closes a file and lets everyone go home. I filed the closure paperwork myself. I remember doing it. I remember thinking, finally, this can go back in a drawer and I can stop thinking about it. That was 6 days ago. I don't remember the 6 days after that. I know that sounds like an excuse or a dramatic flourish, and I wish it were. But I opened file 44B this morning to do a routine audit, and on the last page, a page that should have been blank, a page I would have had to print and file myself, there's a single paragraph in handwriting. It's my handwriting. The way I cross my sevens, the way my lowercase g always drags a little too far below the line. It's mine. I don't remember writing it. It describes, in detail, a conversation I have no memory of having, with someone whose name I don't recognize, in a location I've never been. It ends mid-sentence, the same way 6614's recording did. No period, no trailing off, just a stop, like whoever was writing it simply ran out of time, or got interrupted, or finished being needed. I keep this file locked in a cabinet that only I have the code to. Nobody else has been in this room. I checked the badge logs myself, twice. I think I need to stop reading these case files out loud to myself when I work late, because I don't know when I started narrating them, or how long I've been doing it, or who, if anyone, has been listening on the other end. I don't remember the last 6 hours, and every clock in this office reads exactly 14 minutes different from my phone, and I don't know which one of them is lying to me. Has anyone else ever found something in their own handwriting that they don't remember writing? I need to know I'm not the only one this has happened to, because right now, sitting here, I'm genuinely not sure how much of tonight is going to belong to me. The boat in my grandfather's logbook has 40 lit windows, and lighthouses like the one he kept were only ever built 2 stories tall. I found the logbook in a cedar chest 3 weeks after his funeral, wrapped in a plastic grocery bag like it was something he'd meant to throw away and never got around to. My grandfather kept the light at a small station on the Maine coast. I'll call it Black Point Light because the real name is still searchable and I don't want anyone driving out there. From 1979 until it was automated and decommissioned in 1987. I knew almost nothing about that job. He never talked about it. My mother used to joke that he came back from that assignment a quieter man, and I always assumed she meant the isolation did that to him. 8 years alone on a rock in the Atlantic will do that to anyone. I read the whole logbook in one sitting, at my kitchen table, with the porch light on because it was already dark by the time I opened the chest. I want to walk you through it the way I read it, in order, because the order is the only thing that makes any of this make sense. Or maybe nothing here makes sense, and the order just makes it worse. The first 100 pages are exactly what you'd expect from a lighthouse keeper's daily log. Weather, wind direction, fuel levels for the lamp, a supply boat arriving every third Tuesday, always noted with the same dry relief. Boat came, thank Christ, out of coffee since Thursday. There's a warmth to those early entries. He mentions a stray cat he started feeding off the rocks. He complains about his knees. He notes, almost fondly, the specific loneliness of watching the mainland lights come on every evening from 3 miles out, knowing none of them were on for him. Then, on an entry dated October 4th, 1981, there's a single line that doesn't fit with anything around it. Saw a boat tonight past the point that shouldn't have been visible from here. Nothing runs that channel, not with the rocks. Didn't log the position, didn't want to explain it to the district office. That's it. No follow-up for 6 days. Weather notes resume like nothing happened. I want you to sit with that for a second, because I did. A lighthouse keeper, someone whose entire job was watching the water, someone who knew every boat that legitimately passed that channel, saw something out there he didn't want written down officially. And it took him 6 more days to mention it again. When the boat comes back into the log, it's November, and the entries change in a way that's hard to describe without sounding dramatic, so I'll just give you his words instead of mine. It anchored tonight. No running lights, no lights at the wheelhouse, nothing you'd expect on a vessel that size. But I counted 40 windows lit from the inside. Counted twice to be sure. No hull markings I could make out even with the glass. It's closer than last time. He starts keeping a tally after that. Not of supplies, not of weather, of the boat. How many nights it appears. How many windows are lit each time, which is never the same number twice, but which he insists, in increasingly frustrated handwriting, always adds up to more than there should be room for. He measures its distance using landmarks on the shoreline, comparing it night to night, and by December, his own math has it 400 yards closer than it was in October, without ever once appearing to move while he's watching it. He requested a transfer that winter. The district office, and I found paperwork for this part, actual paperwork, not just his log, denied it, citing no other keeper available and an unremarkable service record that gave them no reason to prioritize his request. I have that denial letter. I've read it more times than I should. The entries get shorter after the denial. Fewer complete sentences. More lists, dates, distances, a running count of lit windows that climbs, unevenly, toward triple digits by February. There's a gap in the logbook. 2 full weeks, no entries at all, which for a man who wrote something every single day for 2.5 years, unsettled me more than almost anything else in the book. When the entries resume, there's exactly 1 line before another gap. I stopped writing because it started writing back. I sat with that sentence for a long time. I turned the page expecting an explanation, and there wasn't one, just weather notes again, dry and clipped, like whatever happened in that gap had been folded shut and put away. Except the handwriting in the weather notes after that point is slightly different. Not dramatically. The kind of different you'd only notice if you'd spent 3 hours, like I had, staring at every loop and slant of a dead man's handwriting until you knew it better than your own. I want to be honest with you. I almost stopped reading there. I told myself I was tired, that grief does strange things to how you read a page, that a man alone on a rock for years is allowed to have his handwriting drift. I made myself a cup of tea. I told myself this was just an old man's isolation talking, nothing more, and I almost believed it until I turned to the final entry. The lighthouse was decommissioned and automated in the spring of 1987, and according to every county record I've since pulled, the physical tower itself was torn down that same year. Deemed structurally unsound, demolished, the land eventually folded into a small coastal preserve. My grandfather's log should have ended around then, with a routine handoff note, the kind every keeper wrote when a station went automatic. It doesn't. The final entry in the book is dated 3 years after the tower no longer existed. It's not in his handwriting. Not the handwriting from the first 100 pages, not even the slightly different handwriting from after the gap. It's a third hand entirely, careful and slow, like someone copying letters they'd only recently learned to form. It describes a house. My house. The one I'm sitting in right now, the address, the specific crack running down the corner of my kitchen ceiling that I've never once mentioned to anyone outside this family. The porch light I turned on 20 minutes ago because it was getting dark. If that's the kind of detail that just made the room around you feel a little colder, I understand completely, because I checked every door in this house before I let myself keep reading, and I'm still not sure that helped. There's no signature, no final line of explanation, just the description of this room, this table, and one sentence beneath it, in that same slow, careful hand. Windows lit from the inside. Counting again, I checked the county records twice, because I needed to be sure I wasn't the one losing my grip on this. The lighthouse was torn down in 1987. I have the demolition permit. I have photographs of the empty foundation, the grass grown back over it, taken the following summer. The boat wasn't in any of them, but it was never in any of the photographs my grandfather described. Either, not once, in 8 years, did anyone else ever report seeing it. Just him. And now, apparently, just me, sitting at a kitchen table with a porch light on, in a house a dead man somehow described 3 years after the only place he could have been watching it from stopped existing. I've counted my own windows twice tonight already. I keep coming up with a different number each time, and I don't know yet whether that's the wind moving the blinds, or something else deciding it's my turn to start counting back. Has anyone else ever inherited something from a relative that seemed to know things it had no way of knowing? I need to hear that this has happened to someone else, because right now, the porch light just flickered, and I haven't decided yet if I'm going to look.